We want to thank you for choosing to worship with us today. And if you happen to be a child of elementary age and would like to join Miss Kylan from Meizon Kids, you can do so in the back.
She has to specify elementary, because otherwise I'll go back there.
The other thing is on the screen behind me, you're going to see our digital connect card. If you want to scan the QR code, you can sign up for events, you can send us a prayer request, or you can just say hi. And then the real reason why Drake has joined me this morning is he wants to talk about Thanksgiving together.
I just want to tell you guys some of the things we've got going on, leaning into the community. Meizon is a relatively new church, and so we're still trying to put who we are out there into our city. And we really want to inject our city with not just who Meizon is, but what the good news of Jesus is, that we believe that everyone can come to this table, that we believe that everyone is worthy of love and of grace and of belonging here at Meizon and in our city. And so coming up, we've got what's called Thanksgiving Together. And I understand, I've had several people tell me it's a logistical nightmare that we're doing it on Thanksgiving Day. But we're doing it on Thanksgiving Day because any other day felt like a cop-out. The concept of Thanksgiving Together is that we want to provide a space for people who don't have a space on Thanksgiving. If you think about our Sunday morning experience, that's what we're doing every Sunday, is providing a space for people who don't have a space anywhere else on Sunday mornings. And so we want to extend that. We know just how hurt people can be around the holidays. We know just how hard it can be when someone has been rejected from their tables, from their families, and they have to spend Thanksgiving alone. Imagine being a student around when the town shuts down because everyone's gone home to their families and you have to figure out what you're going to eat on Thanksgiving. And it's probably going to be Chinese takeout. Nothing wrong with Chinese takeout, but it's the only place open on Thanksgiving. And so from 4 to 6 on Thanksgiving, we're going to have a traditional Thanksgiving dinner. And then from 6 to 8, we're going to have entertainment live band. So if you know Jared and Rachel Hart, Bohemian Sunshine, their band, they're going to be performing. Wilson will be performing some Christmas music. And then we've also, our very own Wilson, we can round of applause. And then we've also got, if you guys know Dylan O'Brien, the Housing Crisis will also be performing. We're going to have face painting and games, and we're gunning for 300 people. That's our goal number over the entirety of the event. We're going to do it downtown at the Streetery. So it's off of 1st and Main. It's where the Bull is. We're going to do it down there. And so from 4 to 6, we're going to have dinner. And from 6 to 8, we're going to have entertainment. We did it from 4 to 6 and from 6 to 8. So that way you guys can go and eat and then come back and eat again from 4 to 6. Or you can go and eat with your families and come to entertainment. If you guys if you know anybody who wants to sponsor the event business, please let me know. We already have some amazing sponsors. We actually just had a platinum level sponsor come in this morning from somebody in the church, which is pretty amazing. And then the other thing is that we also have event tickets. So if you go to MeizonChurch.com/together, attendance is free, but we need to know how many people are going to come. And if you feel it within your heart that you'd like to give, there is a $10 donation ticket. That's a meal sponsorship. And all of those meal sponsorships sold are going to go directly to the Pride Center. So we're sponsoring this event with the Pride Center. They're our partner in doing this. And you can buy a ticket even if you're not going. If you can't make it, you can sponsor a meal for somebody who's going to go. But either way, Thanksgiving Together is the sweet event that we're going to do. And if you want to volunteer, guess what? You can also find that on the website, MeizonChurch.com/together. Miranda said, is it going to be 30 seconds? That was much longer than 30 seconds.
I do know better. But if I give a small thing, maybe it won't be like 30 minutes. All right, so the next thing, we want to remind you, you guys are really generous here, and we're actually, our month of compassion, a lot of that is actually brought because of your generosity. We take 10% of all the gifts that are given to Meizon, and we put them in a special account that's called our compassion account, and we use that to fund doing a lot of our compassion events. So on the screen behind me, you will see we're going to do some ways to give. We have a few ways to give. The first one is you can give online on our website, MeizonChurch.com. You can also text to give by texting the dollar amount to 84321 and selecting Meizon Church. Or if you happen to be in the room with us, you can place your offerings in the back. If you need any help with online giving, please feel free to let us know. More than happy to help you set any of those things up. Last week, we had Noisy Offering, and let me tell you, Cindy and I took that down to our financial institution to deposit, and there was $136.74. Almost $100 of that was in coins, which it was a heavy bag. It was a very heavy bag. It was lots of fun to go. So this month, we are kicking off Compassion, and Kevin's going to start off by telling you a little bit more about it.
Jesus spent his time with people for whom life was not easy. And there, amid those who were suffering, he was the embodiment of perfect love.
Excited today. You guys have so much good energy today. I'm feeling it, and I love it. My name is Kevin. I'm the lead pastor here at Meizon Church. I'm so glad that you're here and that we're together. It's a new month. It's a new journey, especially after yesterday's game. It's a new day, right? Yeah, it was rough. It was rough. I was there. It was crazy. But anyways, sports church lives. All right, so one thing I want to let you guys know is here, this is a big part of my heart. I've shared this a bunch, but for those of you who are here for the first time, I just want to explain to you something about Meizon that is just such a big deal, and it kind of shapes everything that this month is about. I think actions speak so much better than words. Amen? There's a lot of things that we can talk about, and I'm not saying that conversations aren't good, but there's a point where that conversation needs to move into action. I don't want to just be the church that includes people. I want to have the church that has women and LGBTQ folks on our staff. I don't want to just talk about the things that we're doing around the world. I want to actually go and do those things because actions matter. Actions matter. What we do matters so much more. Talk is cheap. It just is. Yeah, I was at the game yesterday, and this is one of the things that it's always so funny. I work at these games, and I'm always cleaning up all this stuff after the game, and whether we win or lose, there's this crowd of people, and it's always right by me, and they sit there, and they talk about this thing like they built football. They were the ones who designed it from the get-go, and if they had just done X, Y, and Z, man, everybody's an expert, right? Everybody knows how the thing works. Everybody loves to talk. We love to talk, don't we? But actually being out on the game, actually being on the field, there's a lot of things that can go wrong. There's a lot of things that can happen that are out of our hands, right? But you know what? I'd much rather be down there doing the thing than just simply talking about it, right? And that's why when we talk about compassion, it's exciting, but it's this tension that I hold, and I get really excited about it because it's man, we get to talk about the things that we're actually doing in this world. We get to talk about the things that we can actually affect change in the world around us in. And that stuff really matters. And so as we're kicking off Compassion Month, those are just some of the things that I've been thinking about. During the Meizon Mission Days, we started this tradition that every November we would do Compassion Month, where we would celebrate our missions partners. We call them Compassion Partners. And as we're in a new season here with Meizon Church, we really want to continue that practice. And so in case you didn't know it, Meizon Church supports several outreach and ministry partners around the world and even here in our own backyard. We have international partners in Kenya, in Haiti, and in Ukraine. We have domestic partnerships with our denomination's Week of Compassion, which is a disaster relief effort that they do. Last year, I don't know if you remember, but when Hurricane Ian came through and there was all that devastation in South Florida, we actually took a whole van full of supplies and money and stuff for those people down in Fort Myers. There's some churches in our denomination down there that we were able to actually go and help clean up and help kind of support them. And so all of that stuff we did through Week of Compassion, which is the disciples their disaster relief effort, right? We also partner with a thing called Rescue, which basically helps with medical expenses for people who work at Renaissance festivals and arts festivals around the country. Locally, we partner with the Pride Center, Gainesville Community Ministry, Ronald McDonald House, Helping Hands Clinic, Peaceful Paths, and then we also do a thing with the Gainesville Big Band, which but basically they're a nonprofit that helps support music, local music in our own backyard. And so we do several concerts a year with the Gainesville Big Band just to support them as well. And so these are just some of our compassion partners. These are the people that we get to do work with. We get to kind of partner up with them to kind of make things happen in this world. It's really cool. Why do we do this? We do this because I believe that compassion drives our generosity. In the book of Colossians, chapter 3, it says that we're supposed to clothe ourselves in compassion. When we have compassion, we aren't so quick to judge, right? Instead, we move from judgment of others to this new place of how can I help? How can I help this? How can I make this better? How can we change the story, right? When I was a young adult, my family situation growing up was really tense. Like I had my mother was an alcoholic, my father was a substance abuser. We always went to church, which is actually pretty miraculous because that's how I learned about Jesus. But my mom always made us go to church, but our home life was really tense. It was very difficult growing up. And so when I turned 18, my dad actually kicked me out of the house. We had a big violent exchange, and I just kind of went out on my own, and it was kind of over for a season with my folks and I didn't really have anywhere to go. And there was a family that I was friends with. They were sort of loose acquaintances of my family, and I was friends with their daughter. Actually, you guys all know Susie Scarborough, who was here, and she shared with us earlier this year. She was like my best friend in that season. And so she knew that I was in a hard place, and she and her family actually took me in. And a lot of times I refer to them as my spiritual mom and dad, right? They were this family that God had placed in my life in a season where I just needed support, I needed help. And I just recently, last week, went to visit them, and it was really, really great. It was really refreshing. But one of the things that we were kind of reminiscing about, we were talking about is like, man, I was a disaster in my 20s. Like, I couldn't figure it out. I couldn't get my own car out of the driveway. Like it was really hard to keep, it was really hard for me to keep a job. It was really hard for me to, I was really bad with my money. Because I didn't have anybody to help me kind of figure life out. I was really trying to figure it out on my own. And they kind of filled this gap in my life. They actually helped me to get a reliable vehicle. They would help me, when in those seasons when I didn't have a job, they'd kind of let me live there rent-free. Like they showed compassion to me. And while I was there, I was sharing with them just how impactful that was to me and how it really changed my story. Like there's a lot of ways my life could have gone, and that family placing themselves in my path, like they didn't have to say yes. Like no one forced them to help me, but they chose to help me, and it changed my story forever, and I'm so forever grateful for that. But the thing is that the reason why we do compassion and the reason why I'm telling that story is because we get to change the story for somebody else. That's why we do compassion. That's why we're compassionate. That's why we show generosity. Because through generosity, you're actually, and you may not even realize it, but even like when we gave gift cards and supplies to the people down in Fort Myers last year, we changed the story for someone else. We have no idea how impactful those things are. It's really, really awesome. Melissa Kiefer, who was here during the Meizon Mission Days, she was one of our first compassion team leaders, and she coined this phrase, and I love this: making the world a more compassionate place. That was kind of the goal, the mission statement for the compassion team, and I love that. And we continue to use that phrase when we talk about our compassion efforts because we know that our compassion fuels our generosity. And so each week we're going to focus on a different compassion partner, usually one international and then one domestic and one local partner. This this week we're going to be talking about our partners in Ukraine. And I want you to know that the plan for today, this is not it. So I interviewed our compassion partners in Ukraine, and the interview was over 40 minutes long. And I was like, I can't show a 40-minute video in church. It's gonna be, mostly because of the translation barrier, right? So it's like they're answering in Ukrainian. There's an English translation for everything they're saying, and then I have to ask the questions. My questions have to be translated, and it's like, so it just takes a lot of time to get through it. But I recorded that interview, and I'm going to be putting it up on our YouTube channel, and I'm going to be posting it in our community group, because I really, really want you guys to get to know these guys. They are really awesome, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about them. So our mission partner in Ukraine is a church called New Life Church. And they are in Ivano-Frankivsk. I'm never going to say this right. I told them in the interview, I said, I can't speak this the right way. I'm going to blow it every time. Ivano-Frankivsk. That's it. Ivano-Frankivsk, Ukraine. It's in western Ukraine, okay? So if you look at Ukraine, there's the Black Sea's on the bottom, right? Ukraine kind of comes up like a big question mark above the Black Sea, right? They're in the western part, which is actually close to Eastern Europe. So it's or in Eastern Europe. So it's kind of moving towards, Romania would be kind of over here, right? And so that's the area that they're in. A lot of the war stuff is going on over on the east side, okay? And in the south part of it. The reason that we got involved with Ukraine, or at least the connection that we have with Ukraine, is when I was in South Carolina as a worship pastor for 7 years, I was at a church called Live Oak Christian Church, and Genna, who is one of the pastors on this staff here, he was helping to lead a church in Gilson. And it was called Island Christian Church, and we were missions partners with them at the church that I was at in South Carolina. And so when the war broke out a couple years ago, I actually reached out to Genna, and I was like, hey, are you guys okay? Is there anything that we can do, what we can do to help? He and his family had to evacuate to Poland. And they were in Poland for a few months, and he was so, there's certain people who are just built for ministry, right? They're built for missions. Genna is built for missions. This guy's heart is so big, because he felt like he was trapped there, and he needed to go back. He needed to go back and do ministry in Ukraine. And so Kherson is actually where a lot of the fighting has been happening. And so actually I think he said that the area that the church was in has been it's just all blown up. There's nothing really there anymore. And so there's no real church for him to go back to there. He does want to go back. He shared in the message. He's like, I can't wait for the war to end so I can go back home and so I can serve my community. But instead what he did was he partnered with these guys who already had vision to start this church in Ivano-Frankivsk. Ivano-Frankivsk. Gotta say it 10 times. So he's partnering with those guys, okay? There's a ministry team, much like we have a lead team here. They have a ministry team of pastors. I met with 3 of them. I think they have 4 total. One of them couldn't make it. And so their lead pastor is a guy named Vladimir. The assistant pastor is a guy named Roman. And then my friend Genna is kind of the overseer. So one of the things I found out in the interview is that Vladimir and Roman are really young. They're both 28. And then Genna's, he didn't tell me how old he was, but he hinted that he's probably close to my age. So he's kind of older guy. He's there kind of helping support them and helping them get things off the ground. And these young guys have such big vision for what they want to see happen in that city. And it's really exciting. And so he's just kind of supporting them. And so that just gives you a little bit of background on how we got connected with them. I love what Genna says to me whenever we get on a call. He's like, oh, we're like sister churches, because their church started in 2020. Meizon Mission started around the same time. And so even in our earliest conversations, he was like, oh, we're like sister churches. We're growing together, and we're doing this thing together. And I love that. And he even said in the call this time, he's like, yeah, it's like there's so many similarities to what we're doing, because we started around the time. They're trying to find ways to be hands and feet of Jesus in their city. They're focusing on outreach to young people and young families. They currently rent a restaurant, pub, and they do church there, and it's been really good for them because that's kind of a place where people would already go to find community and find connection. And so it's a great place for people to come. One of the biggest problems that they're having in Ukraine, and I can't even imagine this, as they were talking, I was like, man, that's intense. There's a refugee crisis in Ukraine, but the refugees are from Ukraine. So you have people who are fleeing eastern Ukraine and they're coming to western Ukraine. So like for the last 2 years, most of the people who've been coming to the church trying to get help are refugees in their own borders. Like these are refugees from their own country who are coming, and they need food and they need clothes and they need warm places to stay. And they're heading into their coldest months now, and it's like they're gearing up to help the people in these ways. And that's really just, I had such a hard time wrapping my brain around that because, when we talk about refugees, and especially when you're, flooded with news all the time, you get these different pictures of what refugees are, and to think that these are literally their neighbors, like literally their neighbors in their own borders that are trying to come and they're trying to find help, trying to get the resources that they need. And they love that they have this restaurant, this space, this storefront that people can come to, and they know that they can provide a safe space for people to come and to get the resources and the help that they need, which is also, it's really amazing. At the end of their call, I got to meet they talked to me right before they were having a meeting, so like it would have been around like 6 p.m. their time, and then at 7 p.m. they had small groups, and their worship rehearsal was happening on Wednesday night when I talked to them. And so as we're finishing our call, you could hear the music starting to be played in the background, and it wasn't in the recording. I wish I had gotten this part, but I asked them to turn the camera around so I could see everybody and what was going on, and their space really wasn't much different than our space. And their band looked very similar to our band, and it was a lot of young people and young families, and it was just so good. It just connected my heart to these guys. That's why I want to encourage you guys to check out the video and get to know these guys, because they're really like partnering with us. And at the end, we even talked about how we need to talk more. We need to have more calls like this and encourage each other, because they pray for us, and we have been praying for them. And I want to encourage you guys to be praying for our partners in Ukraine, because they're really doing hard hands and feet of Jesus' work. It's not that different than what we're doing here. Their country just happens to be at war, which, oh man, I can't even. So, in kind of wrapping this up, one last thing I wanted. This was some of the things they asked us to pray for them, and in this was some of their vision that they have for their church. Their vision's really ambitious. Vladimir, the lead pastor, he's got like really, really, really big vision. Like it's kind of like almost unrealistic vision. And I can relate to that, because I feel like that most days when I go into my meetings with Drake and Miranda, that I have big vision, and they're all like, oh man, here we go. But it was just, he said his vision, this is awesome. His vision is that area is it's a pretty spread out city. His vision is that he wants to establish 5 more churches in that area like theirs in the next 10 years. That's big. That's a big vision to have for your church. But he feels like there's such a need, and there's such a desire in that country for people to make a connection with Jesus and to understand that there's hope for their lives through Jesus, that they want to establish more and more little communities for people to come to. Their church is not much bigger than ours. He said they got about 40 or 50 people that come to church every week and worship together. And he said, their hope is to have 5 more of these little, 50 to 100 people meeting together churches, 5 of them across their city in the next 10 years. And I just think that's awesome. I love big vision like that, and I told them we would be praying for them in that. The other thing is that I asked them if they needed like physical things, like are there any like physical supplies that you guys need? And he said no. They really just, obviously asked for our support, which we support them financially. We'll continue to do so. And then they just asked for prayer. So if you guys, those of you who are the praying type, who have a prayer list, we're going to try and start putting our prayer requests out on we use this what's it called? The Remind app thing. It's like I get text messages. That's all I know. I get text messages. So we have this thing that sends out text messages. I want to start getting like a prayer chain thing together where we regularly put out these prayer requests, and on there we will put some of our compassion partners in there, so that way you guys can be praying for these partners of ours, because they really do appreciate and need our prayers. I know that when we look at the news, it feels like the world is falling apart. I know that like any time I spend more than 5 or 10 minutes on my TikTok feed, things go pretty dark. And it can be really intense, and it can feel like there's no hope. There's unrest, and there's wars, and there's conflicts, and they affect every part of the world around us, even if we have no part of it. And that's a lot. But what I loved about talking with these guys is that they weren't worried about the war as much as they were worried about the people affected by it and how they could help. That is compassion. That's why compassion is so important. That's why creating greater spaces for people to hear and experience the good news in our city is so important, because it gives people hope. It gives people a safe place to go where they can find healing, where they can find peace, and where they can find love from others. That there's a community that will love them right where they are. I think that's at the root of all of what we're doing and all of what we're hoping our compassion partners are doing, is just creating those greater spaces for people so that they know that they're loved, so that they know they're okay, that they belong, that they matter. I'm going to ask Wilson to come up. We're gonna close in a song in just a minute, but I'd love to invite you guys to stand, and we're gonna pray together. So let's just stand together. How many of you, I'm going to ask this, raise your hand if you're comfortable. It's fine. How many of you have ever done missions work or gone on a missions trip? You ever go to a missions trip, ever go to another country, help other people, or maybe to another city with a team and you help people? Those things are really impactful. And I know I'm going to kind of I want to put a little disclaimer on missions, because I think sometimes missions gets a bad rap because there's a lot of times where we go on missions trips because we want to put that little check in our box that we did the good thing, or we want that Instagram photo that we can put up that says, look, I helped a poor person today and check me out, right? There's that's a real thing. There's people who do that. And because of that, a lot of really good work gets a bad name. A lot of really great things that are happening in our world, people who are really trying to affect change for other groups of people, those things kind of get a negative vibe because people have kind of hijacked those to build themselves up and things like that. And I just want to encourage you, even if you've been on a missions trip and maybe you had a bad experience, I want you to know that it's okay, because God actually redeems even those bad experiences. God is present. God knows the things that went wrong on your missions trip. God knows about the selfish people who tried to hijack all the good that you did in whatever place you were in. God is still there. He's still present. He's still speaking. He's moving and doing things. And so I hope that encourages you today. Don't be afraid to move in an opportunity to serve others because of the bad things that happened in the past, or the thing. It's a new day. We get to rewrite that story, just like what I was saying earlier. We get to change the story for somebody else by doing these things. So if you would, let's pray. We're going to pray for our friends in Ukraine, and I'm going to pray for you guys, and then we're going to sing another song. So God, there's this song that we sing. Some of us may have known this song when we were growing up, but there's a song that I know I sang, and it talked about your fountain flowing deep and wide. God, your gospel, your truth reaches further than we could ever imagine. It's deep and wide. And God, I'm thankful that there are people on the other side of this planet who are doing a work where they're sharing your hope and your compassion and your love with people, and that love is so deep and it's so wide and it goes further than we could ever imagine. And so God, I just thank you for our friends in Ukraine. I thank you that they are doing that work. I thank you that we get to be a part of it in our support of them. I pray that one day this war would end and that we could go over there and that we could be a part of it and see them and meet them in person and walk with them and that they could come here and that they could see the work that we're doing, and that we can make those kinds of connections with them. God, I pray that they would be encouraged. God, I pray that their big vision would be honored, that they would move towards it with passion and excitement, knowing that you are with them. No matter how it goes, that you are behind them saying, this is the way, walk in it. God, I pray that us as a church would be encouraged by that. God, for anybody who's in this space who might be feeling like they're not enough, maybe they're in this space and they're asking, why am I even here? Maybe there's people in this room who are trying church again after a really bad experience. I want you to move in this next couple minutes in these, as we sing these songs and as we worship. I pray that you would bring your compassion to them, Lord, that your presence would be evident to them, that you have not given up on any of us, but that you are right beside us, that you are the voice that's cheering us on, that's saying, keep going. Don't let the jerks keep us from moving forward. God, we know that you're there. So God, I pray that you would encourage us today. God, thank you again that we get to be a part of actually doing things that affect change in this world. Pray all this in your name. Amen.
I have enjoyed our time here today, and I hope that you have too. I hope you've enjoyed learning about our mission partners in Ukraine, and I hope you'll join us. You'll see us come and listen to some of the other ones. I'm looking forward to hearing the full interview when it gets posted. A couple things before you go. We still have our Greater Love t-shirts on sale. They are out in the Welcome Center. And then other than that, we also have a few new groups that are starting this week. Holy Smokes is meeting here tonight. There is a group, Greater Love, that's going to be meeting on Tuesday. No Bull at the Bowl is on Wednesday. And then our next Tuesday's mission is going to be November 14th. And our next Connect group will be November 17th. If you have questions on any of those groups, please feel free to see me or Drake or Kevin. And other than that, we will see you next week.